Have you ever crammed for a vocabulary test only to feel like all those new words just vanished a week later? Well, today we're diving into a really fascinating study that might just have the answer to making new words stick in your brain for good.
Right? You put in the hours, you memorize these long lists for a test. Maybe you're trying to learn a new language, and then, a few days later, poof, gone. It's such a common and honestly a super frustrating experience. But what if there's a better way to fill that bucket and, actually plug the leaks?
Well, a team of researchers in Costa Rica decided to tackle this head-on. They developed and tested this powerful combo of techniques right inside a real classroom. So in this explainer, we're going to break down exactly what they did, what they found, and how you can actually use their methods to learn way more effectively.
So first, let's talk about the problem. Why is our brain sometimes so good at forgetting new words? Researchers actually have a name for this phenomenon, the vocabulary black hole.
According to a ton of educational research, it really boils down to a few key culprits. You know how it is. We get distracted, the exercises we're given are kind of boring, and they just don't engage our long-term memory. Sometimes we're just not motivated, or we're handed a list of like 50 words that's just impossible to absorb. It's basically a perfect storm for forgetting.
And this is why this whole thing is so important. As the researchers themselves put it, vocabulary is this powerful instrument. It can unlock so many opportunities in your school life, your personal life, and your career. I mean, at the end of the day, it's the key to really communicating effectively. So how did the researchers decide to tackle this problem? Well, they didn't just come up with one single solution. They designed this really powerful three-part combination that's all about making learning actually stick. Okay, first up, visual aids. This is all about making learning, attractive. By using drawings, pictures, and colors, you create these really strong mental hooks for new words. I mean, think about it. It's the difference between just seeing the word apple on a page and seeing a picture of a big, crisp red apple. Your brain is just going to remember that image so much more easily.
Next up is something called the drilling method. Now, this isn't about boring, mindless repetition. It's about smart, structured practice that's designed to make remembering a word feel automatic, almost like muscle memory. Through these engaging and varied exercises, words start to move from your short-term memory right into your long-term memory.
And finally, this is the secret weapon, total physical response, or TPR for short. This method is just brilliant. It connects words to physical actions. I mean, just think about how a little kid learns, right? You say, wave bye-bye, and they actually wave. TPR uses that exact same idea, and it turns passive learning into this active, full-body experience. You're not just learning a word, you're doing the word.
So the researchers' big idea, their hypothesis, was pretty simple but really powerful. By combining these three things, visuals, smart repetition, and physical action, they could create a learning experience that was just way more engaging, more memorable, and more effective than any of those methods used all on their own.
Okay, so that's the theory. But how did this idea actually hold up in the real world? Let's take a look at the experiment they conducted in a high school classroom down in Costa Rica.
And this is key. This wasn't done in some sterile lab. The study took place with 29 real 7th graders at Ciudad Neily High School. And that's what makes these findings so powerful. They were tested in a real classroom with real students.
And they didn't do this with boring old worksheets. No way. They turned the entire theory into a series of super fun interactive games. They played charades, which is perfect because it combines physical action and recall. They used Simon Says to practice those TPR commands. They played hot potato, which forces that quick, repetitive recall. And they did Pictionary bingo to link the words directly to visual illustrations.
So, the big question is, did it work? After running all these games and collecting the data, what did the researchers actually find? Let's dive into the results.
First, let's look at some baseline data. Before the experiment even started, nearly half the students, about 46%, already knew that repetition was a good way to memorize stuff, so they understood the value of practice. That's a really important starting point. But then came the surprise.
And this is where things get really interesting. Even though we know how beneficial this kind of learning is, a staggering 93% of those students said they never got to learn through movement in their classes. This just revealed a huge, completely untapped potential sitting right there in the classroom.
So what happened when the researchers actually introduced it? Well, this number really says it all. During these new physical games, 25 out of the 29 students visibly had fun. They were smiling, they were laughing, they were totally engaged. Learning literally became joyful.
And you know what? That joy translated directly into results. A full 23 students showed improved recall, and that same number had no problem at all understanding the physical instructions. An amazing 27 of them were focused during the drills, and maybe most importantly, the learning actually stuck around, even after the games were over.
When you break it down, each piece of the puzzle played a really important role. The visuals improved concentration, the drilling was super effective for recall, but that TPR, the movement, that was kind of the magic ingredient that just boosted everything: engagement, enjoyment, and retention.
So why does this amazing combination work so well? And what's the big takeaway for all of us, whether we're teachers or students? The secret really is that it doesn't try to force everyone to learn in the exact same way. Instead, it engages multiple learning styles all at the same time. The visual learners, they're captivated by the images. The auditory learners get to hear and repeat the words. And the kinesthetic learners, the ones who really need to move to learn, they are finally brought into the lesson in a meaningful way. It's a win-win-win. So what's the recipe here for making vocabulary actually stick? It's pretty simple. First, don't just show words, illustrate them. Second, remember that repetition is powerful, but you've got to make it engaging and fun. Third, get learners moving. Connect those new words to real actions. And finally, always remember that the true power comes from combining these methods together.
What's so exciting about this research is that it proves that making huge improvements in learning doesn't always require expensive tech or completely changing the education system. It started with simple games like Simon Says and charades. And that leaves us with a final, really powerful question. If a few simple, joyful games can make such a huge difference, what other small changes out there could completely revolutionize the way we all learn?